Hello and welcome to the Asylum. I'm your host, Don, and with me is
I'm Jeremiah.
very excited intro there, Jeremiah.
Well, I don't know. We kind of had no excitement for what we're building into this week because last week we watched H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, not to be confused with every other actual good version of War of the Worlds.
Yes.
And this time we're watching War of the Worlds 2, The Next Wave, which came out 3 years later by the Asylum, and it's slightly shorter and has half the budget.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know where that budget went. Maybe, I got nothing. Where do you think that budget went?
Craft services and
Not in the
CGI.
Uniforms. Definitely not in the uniforms.
There's an awful lot of digital effects in this movie, though.
It's true. I really enjoy the complete non-dramatic way people get vaporized in this movie.
It's just completely different than what they had in the last one. Last one they had like acid, and this one heat ray, which is I guess more true to the actual story.
I guess, but no, it's just like not even a sound effect. Just gone.
So I find it funny. The first one ends with them giving everyone rabies, and the tripods start dying. If you guys have the background, that's my son. He should be in sleep, but he's not. But this one talks about how there was years after this, and 2 years later, and even though the aliens were killed by lack of immunity, they're apparently still there.
Yeah.
They act like the movie like they've been there for a while, but no. In the job description, they say 3 tripods land, and these tripods are like living things instead of like crab armor.
Yeah, so I guess that the idea was it kind of made me think of the Yuzon Vong, honestly, from Star Wars. Former expanded universe that doesn't exist anymore. Legacies.
That's like explaining that into the unit, explaining that in live action if they could. That would take a lot of time they don't have.
Oh goodness. Anyway, so it kind of made me think of the Yuzon Vong, where like all of their technology is like organically based, right? That's kind of what I got the feeling that they were trying to go with on this one. So like the crab thingy was actually
Squidwalkers.
Yeah,
Squidwalkers.
They were totally squid-like. Anyway, so the Squidwalkers were apparently actually like organic beings, sort of.
And rather than like acid and having these like limbs that come out, they're just kind of all walking around vaporizing people. They land and they start. There's like apparently the civilization's like never recovered, even though that truck looks real nice.
Yeah, so his truck looks very nice. And B, it has been 2 years since they stopped the invasion, and yet there's still like no like forward momentum. They haven't rebuilt any infrastructure or anything in 2 years. Like,
and the commander of the military hasn't repaired his uniform. It still looks in tatters. Like, dude, you're not in command if you're gonna look like that.
Yeah, like he's supposed to be the commander of that base or whatever, and he's just like all tore up. Like, okay, maybe you couldn't find a new uniform, whatever, but it's at least gonna be patched. Like, you're gonna fix the rips.
You aren't gonna have like an arm like it's hanging there. But so George Herbert's in this one. He's the main character again. He's also the director. He hears the familiar sound on the radio. I believe that's what he heard, even though it wasn't really in the first movie. And so then he goes to the Major Kramer. A major's in charge. Let me tell you, a major. And a group of scientists that operate in a garage, I think. One of the worst accent of all time. Just two of them, though. And they come up with this weird theory that I don't know how they figured out if they were working out of a garage about how there's like wormholes that connect Earth and Mars. And so they have this
time holes? No, what do they call them? Time jumps? Because like
something like that.
They weren't traveling. They weren't using like faster than light travel or anything. I don't know why they didn't go with that. I guess like maybe
it's just call it a wormhole like it is in like proper science and science fiction.
Yeah, but it was a time.
Not that they used that term.
Yeah, no,
And they have this fleet of fighters that they've retrofitted to have alien technology, but apparently they haven't figured it out. And they say at the beginning there's like 20 of them, but there's definitely way more than 20 once they launch them.
I mean, I'm not sure on that at all. But
well, the dots, but like when they show them in CG form, so what they do is they launch all these fighters.
That scene made no sense. So like they said there's 20 of them. There's only 3 pilots, I think, that we hear from, which is the Major, Stingray, and who is the third guy?
Well, there's the one that has the goggles that.
Oh no, you froze. Jeremiah, you froze. You're frozen. Jeremiah, I lost you. You're frozen.
I think you froze.
You were froze like, man, this. It was like the dude, the aliens guy. It was beautiful.
He wore the goggles from the 1950s version. That's what those like weird round goggles were.
Oh, that was a good call.
Literally from the set.
Nice. But yeah, so they only showed 3 pilots. They claimed they had 20 jets. And then the constantly on loop reused scene of them trying to break out of the atmosphere with no oxygen system, by the way, of them trying to break out of the atmosphere. There was hundreds of them.
I also find it hilarious that the aliens kept on flying in the same straight lines the entire time, and they were freaking out. I'm like, first of all, why? So they're going after an alien mothership, because this is War of the Worlds, not Independence Day. War of the Worlds, an alien mothership that had come back and was launching all these little drones. And then when they go up there to fight it, and they also want to launch diseases at it.
Some sort of, okay, so there's like a plot with like a super virus that they're trying to make, and well, okay, so we're getting ahead of ourselves. So back,
okay.
George goes to talk to the scientists working in the garage, and while he's there, he manages to use his code that he created from watching stuff through a telescope somehow.
Being a meteorologist / astronomer.
Yeah. He manages to wake up the technology somehow with the code that he figured out from watching the stars through a telescope. And then they're like, this is amazing. We can fly through the atmosphere without putting oxygen systems on our planes somehow. And so then he is supposed to go back to his son because his his wife, the hot wife from the first movie that we get to see her boobs, is dead.
Though he couldn't afford.
She got murdered off screen. We don't know how.
I actually thought she died in the opening.
Oh, she died in the opening?
Oh, there we go.
Apparently, I don't know if his wife died in the opening, because I thought the opening was the Sissy and whatever that guy, creepy dude's name, because he never actually, I don't remember him actually giving.
There's also a child, but like there's a child and a woman who looks like it could be the wife, and I was just like, I don't know who that is, and I just assumed.
But the child also gets zippity zapped, but Alex doesn't get zippity zapped. Also known as Wrangler. I guess his name is Alex Wrangler.
That's why I was confused. I was like, oh, they offed him at the beginning. Why?
But
I don't know.
Gone somehow. So he is living alone with Alex, because he has to get back to Alex. So he's driving back to Alex in his way too nice post-apocalyptic truck, and he runs out of gas, which is, in my opinion, the dumbest thing that they could have possibly done. Like, it's the post-apocalypse. You are a scientist who is super smart and has been living in a bunker for 2 years, and you're telling me you are not carefully tracking the amount of gasoline in your vehicle? You can map the stars to figure out an alien code, but you'll forget to fill up your gas tank.
Yep. And he has to go like trade like his food rations for gas. He has to basically get back to some woods. He gets back home.
A food ration infrastructure somehow, but not a gasoline infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, and then like he gets back and his son comes out just in time for him to arrive and watch his son get zapped by a tripod, which is there, which at least they heard this time.
But again, the tripod doesn't then turn around and attack him. That never happens until the one time he purposefully gets zapped.
And you find out when they get so then he gets all sad and mopey and wants to go get zapped. So you find out when they get zapped, they actually get zapped to the inside of these tripods that look an awful lot like random things of plastic, like you find in a construction site, just hanging there that are painted. And they're like sticking tubes in you because they're like sucking out your blood, but they want to clean your blood first to make it so you don't get any diseases.
Apparently, the reason they invaded Earth was for our blood because they're intergalactic vampires. But our blood has pathogens in it that they aren't prepared for. So they're siphoning out our blood and cleaning it so they can use it later for whatever their vampiric desire is.
And you apparently aren't supposed to touch the sides because something will happen if you touch the side.
Unclear what.
Now, I could say we need to redo some of this stuff, but honestly, this movie is not good enough for me to care that much.
I know the amount of editing you already have to do for this video.
So they found out they're inside these tripods, and then for some reason, when they leave, they don't actually leave the tripods. They're on Mars now.
But on Mars, it looks like Earth.
Looks like the same set they were just at. It's just so they could be like the petri dish, and they meet people who are like infected with tons of disease who then like jab their own blood into him because this is definitely a place to just start giving each other bloodborne pathogens.
Because there's nothing wrong with sharing needles.
And while this is going on, Earth is launching all their fighters because a tripod landed and is going to destroy that base. And so they launch all these fighters who are going straight up into the atmosphere, but they aren't ready to go yet because they don't have like the code, which is being sent to them somehow from this garage. And they're going in a straight line where the aliens are all coming in this weird animated straight line.
My favorite thing about that is the radar system that their satellites are showing them. So for showing locations of things that they are tracking via satellite, they're using like the classic radar, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But it is what it is. We forgot to mention that they brought in your favorite character in the whole movie when he goes into the spaceship, Pete, who is a cross between Ice-T and Brendan Fraser, but not nearly as entertaining as either of those people.
Yeah, Christopher Reed, who is best known for House Party, which apparently is a series that people like because there's like 3 of them. Super Ninjas, Black Dynamite animated series, and he looks white, but he's half black and half Irish. He's known for his weird, like, cut off, like, high top hair.
He was wonderful.
And then your favorite character.
My favorite character from both movies, turns out.
The same actress who played the far too religious blasphemer is this main scientist in this one with the worst accent I could possibly think of. I'm like, you don't work for NASA.
Victoria. Vicky.
You don't work for NASA.
But yeah, so they get the spaceships to get into space, which immediately fails.
Well, no, that's not to immediately fail. They get up there. Some of them die on the way, and they get there to see the mothership, and then the mothership like warps out through this wormhole. And the way it looks like the mothership just disappeared, but apparently they all did, and they end up in Mars. But somehow the shielding that she did from Earth is still functioning for their ships over Mars. Even I'm not sure how many of them are even still alive.
At least 3.
Because they're just kind of hanging there and
unconscious.
And I like her response, like, we're just getting drunk.
Yeah, it was like the best. Is the most realistic thing in this entire movie is like Eric, I think was his name, the other scientist, is like, okay, so we have no ground forces and we just lost our Air Force. You want to get drunk? And she's just like, yes. And then they pans away.
And I find it interesting. So this one actually showed that they can fight back. The first one, they never mentioned that they're Martians at all. Never.
Yeah, never.
This one is like common knowledge. The first one, they aren't really abducting humans. This one, they're definitely abducting humans.
Except that
like it is in the
according to this
novel.
one, they abducted humans in the first one. We just didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're on Mars, and they're going through these like interiors that they're not supposed to touch the sides of, but they're clearly touching the sides of. And they're just trying to find his son to rescue him. And George got given all the diseases, apparently.
All of them.
And also while they're on Mars, one of the fighters like crashes through this dome petri dish thing that they're in. And I like it how one of the I'm just gonna skip it because there's not much in this movie we're talking about. They're like, oh, there's tons of people over here. Okay, grab them all. We're gonna go like in that one ship.
Yeah, we're gonna fit at least 5 people in this.
And then they want to grab more
fight
in an F-22. Like I can see 4. Like one of them's a kid. He's sitting on the lap. I'm not sure how he survived G-forces, but in oxygen, they have oxygen masks for a reason
that they never wear.
And then, apparently they defeat these aliens because they gave him all the diseases and then they had him get absorbed, and so they took his blood and they started dying, I think, maybe, possibly.
They injected him with the pathogen. He then takes, I think, the same needle, shoves it into his arm, pulls it out, and then
puts it in a brain.
The mother brain with it.
A brain. It's not a mother brain, it's a brain.
Just a brain.
Because there's another brain that they found on Earth.
Yeah.
That looks a lot like plastic you can find in a paint shop. And
then they get back to Earth, all of them fitting into one fighter jet.
They can also breathe on Mars, mind you, especially after the hole gets put through their dome by a fighter. and the wormhole, which gets opened and closed, somehow is open when they want to leave. And then they get back in the sun.
Vicky, who in 20 minutes couldn't upload the code to save the pilots, in 2 seconds opens this wormhole while clearly hammered.
And then when they get back, they make this whole thing that the main guy died because of the diseases, and the son's all sad, and he just walks up and like, it's touch and go for a while, but we managed to cure him, even though he had like every disease known to man.
Apparently, they had the cure to every disease known to man in whatever future timeline.
And like the 6 of them are at this thing, and like, if you want to survive as a race, there needs to be a lot more giggity going on, and a lot less. This guy can cook because he did KP duty a lot. KP is usually cleanup, not cooking. KP does not stand for cooking patrol.
It could be. Given the logic in this movie, there's one woman in the future. Her name is Vicky. She's a raging alcoholic. And then there's 5 other people. And that's it. It's all the people that exist.
One child that everyone knows. And I'm not sure what they did with the tripods that were on Earth and why they all look differently in this one. And so they get back, and then they hear the radio, and that signals again, and then the movie ends, and you go, oh, God, there's another one.
Yeah, so we were like, oh, God, there's a third, which is what we talked about.
We'll talk about that next time.
And which is what we talked about in the previous video. So check out the third one.
War of the Worlds Annihilation. It has a Baldwin.
I'm
not telling you which one. But this movie, C. Thomas Howell is fine.
He's a good actor. I like C. Thomas Howell. Everybody
Christopher
else
Reed is, as I call him, discount store Brendan Fraser. Everyone, like Major Kramer, is terrible.
Vicky,
everyone is terrible. The music is clearly recycled. The effects. The money clearly went to the effects more than stuff. Because one thing I will say about this, the way it's filmed, you notice there's not a single wide shot with people. Like, it is zoomed in on everyone's face. Like, when they talk, it's like one person's face and the camera's like right here.
Well, see, you're talking about the effects, except that the movie opens with people fleeing the tripods. And then we get Sissy and whomstever talking, and then people fleeing the tripods again. And it is very clearly the exact same sequence, right down to the exact same dude getting zapped, like shot for shot, the same exact sequence. And that's in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Like,
And yeah, um,
see, Thomas,
I would say
we're same with you.
I'm just like
So
everything they filmed is clearly such a close up that's like I'm not even sure if you filmed this with anyone else in the same set because there's so few shots with multiple people in the same like shot. It's always like right here on their face like this. Like there is no reason to have a shot that's like right there. There's no reason.
They couldn't afford the background.
And some of them like you can't afford a reverse shot, so it's like literally in pickups with like in your face, in your face, in your face, in your face, everything. And then and then you can the only wide shots that are in this movie are special effects shots, which have no people and they're just special effects shots. And so, mm, mm, do I recommend this movie? No, I would say it is.
Absolutely not.
The story is more interesting than the first one because it's something different than the first movie, which is War of the Worlds, which was done terribly, but it's not a good movie at all.
Same story.
This is like Independence Day mixed with War of the Worlds, mixed with they needed to get a bunch of stuff from Dollar Tree.
Like, I don't know. I can't, like, the last one I was able to at least say, like, if you're bored, give it a watch, maybe. This one is just bad.
Despite being more interesting, it is bad. It is very bad.
This one was a waste of approximately 1.5 hours of my life.
As with every Asylum movie, it is 90 minutes long, as it should be. It fits in a perfect 2-hour block on Sci-Fi Channel. Do we recommend it? No.
Absolutely not.
But next time, we're going to watch War of the Worlds Annihilation. Will we recommend that one? I'll tell you this, it has 44 times the budget of this one.
Spoiler alert, it's also 20 minutes longer.
44 times the budget. Think of it like Fallout 76. It just works, right? It just works. We'll find out next time.